Hello, is that clear? Okay, so it isn't songs of freedom, so those of you who are expecting me to sing will be disappointed. It's writing resistance, first into a murmur, then into a song. These are a series of short daily texts that I've been doing for 5 years. Smoothen the crease from the sheet, then crush it again. What if you woke up one day and discovered that you had a lot to say, but no desire to say it, not out of a whim, or rage, or fancy, or a sense of resignation bordering on exhaustion, or the frailty of the cynic who couldn't care less? No, you were boiling over, bursting to talk, to share thoughts that you had taken to bed the night before, waiting for the morning, then woken up with them, still as fresh, in fact, more so. After centuries of carefully assimilating all that philosophy and history and humanity, brimming over with ideas too stimulating to contain, burning with excitement, with ideas staring you in the eye, so near that you can hear them breathing. Solutions so simple, you just had to shout them from the rooftops so that people would hear, yet the words would not form. And you stopped, dead in your tracks, turned your back on language, walked away, thinking thoughts that the alphabet had yet to decipher. What then? Like everything else, goodness is an acquired taste. You have to learn the skill, study its variations, practice hour after hour, for days at a stretch, for a lifetime. Angry times these, times that tend to push you to the edge of rage. A little provocation, a nudge in the wrong direction, enough to plunge you into an unforgivable moment of anger. The abyss that offers no return. We are taught to believe that being desperately angry is not the solution. Yet how many times a day do we totter on the brink, like angels struggling before the fall, wings tied, feet and legs bound together, afraid of the unknown, not the slow descent of the plunger before the detonation, nor the giant drilling machine that pierces the crust of the earth and burrows to the center, layer upon layer of viciousness. There is no rock bottom sometimes, no sense of having arrived. The fall over the rim is into limbo. What does it take to be a good human in these times? Taking the silver surface of the still winter lake, he hung it in the sky like a mirror. In place of the sky, he had buried in the earth, in a hurriedly dug grave, covering it with earth, strangling the clouds in mid-conversation. He looked up to see the sky reflected in the lake above the mountains. This seemed to make him angry. So he took the mirror he had created from the uppermost layer of the still winter lake and buried it in the sky in a hurriedly dug grave and covered it with clouds, taking the stars by surprise. He looked down at his handiwork and found the sky he had buried under the earth, in the hurriedly dug grave, staring back at him. This seemed to make him angry, so he took the sky he had created from the surface of the mirror that lay at the bottom of the still winter lake and hung it in the sky that lay buried in the clouds above the tall mountains. Then he proceeded to dig a grave for the stars, and this time he covered the grave he had dug with the large rock he had pushed up the hill. After all, he wanted there to be no witnesses. The openness of language we used to know is under a cloud. The very clouds that we grew up turning into sentences are themselves under suspicion. Imagine yourself as a child of 5 or 50 lying in the middle of a field on a lazy afternoon, in winter, and forming the words ba-ba-goo with the brilliant blue and white clouds. Trusting words to mean what they say between the lines is no longer an option. Sure, we hear them. Often we even see them as they swish down the ramp, stony-eyed and anorexic in their transparent gowns, unblinking in the hushness of the flashing strobes, lifeless, seemingly in tune with the loud music, atonal, self-serving, perhaps, in a dull salute to conformity. Then there are those that are in the grip of fear. Wrap your tongue around one such scared word, and you see it thrashing and struggling to loosen your hold. The desire to spit out words is unadvisable. Surreptitious tiptoeing after a cautious glance to the left, the right, then scurrying across the road would be the way to do it. The vulnerability of freshly formed thought emanating as language, radiant, showering its brilliance, but now a thing of the past, long buried. The first thing he did was to put the languages under arrest, all of them. That's not all. He even put the dialects in jail. To reduce the agitated babble to silence, he isolated them, solitary confinement. Then he stripped them naked, men, women, children, no one was spared, reduced to bare flesh and bones. Meanwhile, his men in black gathered all the name tags that the prisoners had worn and went about the task of mixing one with the other, causing immense confusion in a bizarre revelry of a ritual reminiscent of a lottery, an incoherent alphabet unable to find its way home. The words tainted, sullied from use, abuse, excess battered like yesterday's bruise, unable to heal this wounded sky. To turn the worm from below, from beneath eye level, like boring a hole into the floor from the ceiling below and catching it unawares, building the structures you need before dismantling them like burning bridges. Seal the escape routes. Get rid of the steps you had hurriedly strung between two upright lengths of wood, metal rope for your ladders, the ones you needed to get to that ceiling, the one you would soon drill into the floor above. Rehearse the revolution. Practice it. You are at risk. Subterfuge. Sleight of hand, a strategy that conceals, like successful camouflage, the left hand from the right. Subversion has to begin at the bottom. Like an ink stain, the night seems like another life, the life last night. All our other lives, fragile, fused in this, our life. How then do we know which is, which isn't our life? Why would you want to know? Just be. Become the life that offers itself for sacrifice. I gathered the pebbles from amongst the stones, weighed each one carefully. I did this under cover of darkness, using caution and stealth, watched only by a child who sat at a window, the light behind her head playing hide and seek. When I had collected a sizable number, I began to drop them one by one into a large well, which had once contained drinking water, but was now almost dry. I kept dropping the pebbles all night long, all through the morning that came and the rest of the day. The child who'd kept me company had managed to gather an army of companions. They sat silently, patiently, watching the waters rise. I think they knew that if I continued with my task, the waters would one day overflow. I feel watched, not in a pleasant manner at all. On the contrary, threatening. I'm afraid that a technology I do not understand is watching me in my private moments at the same time as it is entertaining me. I am under surveillance, even as I am seduced by it, the all-pervasive it of our lives. The it as state, as a state of mind, as a powerful presence that will have its way. It as corporation, it as newspaper, as television, as theatre and cinema, it as media with a capital M. It as power that knows no boundaries, and it without conscience. Yes, it is like listening to music by a master composer who is both hypnotic and evil. A music that disturbs like a sharp instrument is descaling my flesh. Yet the voice is magnetic. It attracts. It refuses to let go of my attention. Although I do not understand the substance of the words, nor can I savor the taste of its poetry. What I have is an aftertaste, that which is left behind, that which settles on the tongue of my mind. The science fiction of our worst dreams is in fact fading to black and fast. Imagine a narrow road with flickering lamps from a different age, atop tall posts, shadows against the sky, just before their daily demise at the hands of the morning light, night into day, a crossfade like in black and white films, stretching uphill into a horizon gradually coming to life. Its silver beginning to make its presence known. The dew-washed cobblestones rubbing their eyes, waking up, becoming aware of the dawn light caressing them. Aslant, the road paved in silver, a feast of glitter, a scene that started like a silhouette and then discovered its identity as the dawn made way for the first rays of the sun, and the sounds of the morning for which I find I am responsible, though I know not how or why. I can't for the life of me choose the soundtrack, the effects. I know that for continuity's sake I need the horse-drawn milk cart, what with cobblestones and flickering ramps. But I keep hitting the wrong buttons, loud honking trucks and cars in a hurry. The cycles and the morning joggers with their dogs running beside them, clearly a confused set of cues. In the midst of this growing irritation, I'm stopped dead in my tracks by a falling body, just like that, with not a single tall building in sight. This being a small town at the edge of the world, where the strictest of architectural laws prevail. 1 + 1, that's it. A ground floor and a first floor, tiled roofs, wooden earth. So where did this thing, this body fall from? Nothing to be done. Nobody else seems to have noticed anything amiss. I stop in my tracks, go over to the body, white, covered in a suit made up of fabric I do not recognize, familiar but not known. Bend over it, gently straighten a twisted wing, lift the torso to free the left one. The legs are splayed, the feet bare, showing signs of burns. I cradle the body so that the face and head are leaning against my chest as I sit on the road. The narrow one that disappears into the horizon, the one with the cobblestones, no longer silver, the sun having seen to that. I notice the face, the shut eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears. Something tells me that I have seen this person with the wings before, not in a dream, nor in a painting, elsewhere. But I cannot remember where. I see no visible signs of injury. The breathing is gentle, so I know he is alive. I touch the forehead, then gently try and open each eye with my fingers. The first one has a vivid dream playing under the eyelids, compelling, grand, evocative dream. I shut it hurriedly, feeling a sense of guilt, of intrusion. I slowly open the other eye and then recoil, as though from an electric shock, burning my fingers and thrown backwards by the force of a shattered dream. This eye was raging in fury, destroying everything that had been evocative and beautiful in the other eye, turning dream into nightmare. Unceasingly, the world folded on itself, unfold the world, uncreasing the folds, unfolding, uncreasing this world, trapped in its own folds, stitch this unfolding, uncreased fabric into a cloak, make invisible, hide deep within its folds. She was 5 when she first stumbled, stubbed her toe. Would be even more precise, accurate, this stumbling a blessing, the tripping a revelation. Only the toe hurt for weeks after, to be precise. She was in pain from this accident of fate. This, I think, is an accurate description of what befell the child. The point being that if she hadn't fallen after tripping, stumbling actually would be more correct. Yes, she may not have discovered the rainbow. To be more accurate, precise even, she may have eventually stumbled upon it, but not so early in life. Had the stumbling not taken place, the revelation would not have happened. As it turned out, she stepped on a landmine in a field full of rainbows shortly after the war. The one that had drifted into seizing out of sheer exhaustion, or to be precise and accurate, the war had stumbled into a roadblock. The warring nations had run out of their young. The young had all tiptoed into the field, the one with the landmines, and been reincarnated as rainbows. For it is said that children that die young are reborn almost immediately as rainbows. I confess this may not be accurate or precise, but this is what I have heard. The leaves gathered their whispers, first into a murmur, then into a song. It had begun with my looking over the rim into the jar. What needs to be explained is the sound, the one my fingers cajoled out of the rim, its lips open to persuasion by a slightly moving forefinger and a thumb. A step or two behind, the finger following the curve of the rim where it had all begun, the tall and blue jar, round and round, not unlike the slurred hum of a drunken tuning fork. The dark lay in the depths of the jar, the blue and tall jar, waiting, some would say patiently, damp, cold to the touch, the dark, in the jar, allowing me to look into its eyes, beginning to rise, the dark, even as we were getting acquainted. I will confess, I may have imagined this, but it rose ever so slowly as I looked into its eyes, imperceptible at first, like an uncontrolled sigh. If I had not known better, a sobbing, an angry keening that filled the jar and began an upward climb, like fog when it rises unbidden. I reached into the jar, scooped up a handful of fog and swallowed it whole. Shutting my mouth tight, I allowed it to struggle and kick and threaten to explode, nothing doing. Having clamped my mouth shut, I wasn't about to give in to this bluster. Taken by surprise, the dark in the jar slowly slunk off into a corner, making way for the sun to rise. Tools of a trade she knew nothing about, except from television spent hours watching surgeons operate, save lives, gave her the idea that why not give it a shot. Acting with brisk energy, she strode into the kitchen, flung open the second drawer, and selected with relative ease a precise knife sharpness glittering on its matte-polished face, its teeth grinning like a canine gone rabid-eager, its muscles taut to strike, slice, bite, whatever the appropriate phrase is for such like activities. She had plans of her own, of which the first was to steady her hand quiver that ran down her right arm like a river in spate, and by the time it crossed the elbows, it swelled into 40-foot waves that would soon crush against the fragility of the wrists and drown this knife and end she clutched onto. So yes, steady, defy narrow forehead, crease focus eyes on the thin drawn, trying to escape from captivity, while the night sleeps in arrogance. Take knife, slice with swiftness, a rectangle of the sky the size of a decent horizon, letting the sun climb, make its tentative way. opening wide its eyes, beginning to stare gratefully at the woman with the knife, its smile about to spread warmth and light as she, with rapid strokes, stabbed it in the eyes, plunging the world back into a blindness that was complete. The night slipped in through the open window. The scream detached itself from her grasp and echoed across the land, pausing not once to catch its breath. Some of the things I remember of last night's dream: a falling leaf, yellow, weighed down by a dewdrop, a crystal ball, backlit by the twice exhausted sun sinking deep into the earth, a sandpaper voice singing a lullaby, words marching past, regimented in khaki, jackboots without torsos, cheerleader in arms, rifles swinging like batons, spiders weaving webs of steel with heart-shaped combination locks, moonlight singeing the spines of books even as they crumble to ash, a sound of wings flapping, countless cradles being smashed against the trunk of giant trees, wailing caterpillars through a tantrum, crickets with butterfly wings. Our present under siege. Always the dream, like stepping into a screen straight off the street. One moment you're on the real and the concrete, feet echoing briskly, body focused on the art of walking, a deep concentration, the backpack, briefcase, slung bag, firmly gripped or swinging by your side, hugging your shoulder blades, the jacket hanging loose over cotton trousers, a study in browns and fawns. Then, the frames of a film being screened at half its speed, out of sheer fatigue, exhausted by the effort of slowing down. Every move exaggerated, drunken, slurring, the act of walking a symphony in blurred motion, minus the music, as if treading air in the manner of a drowning swimmer, a struggle between one dreamt-up step and another, against the backdrop of a city moving at twice its speed, cars, buses, trains whizzing past in split-second blinks, and then it goes strangely quiet, more still, then silent, like the breath was squeezed out of its throat. Then you hear it, a caning, growing in volume, its goose steps marching towards you. You reach for the knife, the one hidden under your jacket, swiftly, no longer allowing the film to slow you down. Clinical, painful, you stab each eye to stop the dream from spreading. Plucking the stars from her eyes, she nailed them to the sky, failing to see the world turn silver. I bled from my feet and hands. Soon the blood enveloped the land, drowning everything, even the fish. Sealed tight, the house had been shut for too long. First the planks had been nailed in, crisscrossing every window and door, then bound head to toe in chains that had been allowed to rust. Nothing was allowed in nor out. Like an unannounced visitor, I dropped by into my dream, careful not to awaken the buried whispers. I lit a candle by their grave, startling the slumbering shadows into a frenzy of activity. Bats taking wing, flying blindly into each other. This in turn caused the whispers to awaken, look me in the eye, and begin to do what they did best, bear witness. She had lost her way home and found herself in the part of the forest where darkness reigned and the shadows lay poised, ready and waiting for just such a moment to swallow the little ray of sunshine. David and Goliath, a vertical confrontation. Visually, that is, one small, even tiny, in comparison to the other. Mountain, giant, immense, frighteningly so. This is what it is like when facing the enemy, any enemy, the one in our midst, for instance, the one that watches our every move, a fraction of a second before we have begun the act of stepping into it. Imagine the anxiety of the citizen living with the knowledge that every single thought is a projected Xerox of the state's ability to second-guess accurately, precisely, menacingly. They know what you think, therefore you are. Your compliance is the reason you're even allowed to breathe. After all, what is to stop them from cutting off the next breath, which in any case is something that they become aware of before you take it? It isn't that I'm afraid, it is more the vertigo that accompanies this feeling in my bones, the fact that there is nothing they do not know. And yet I must confront the enemy with the slingshot of my ability to reduce the space between my enemy and me by somehow bringing it to its knees, so that I force it to look into my eyes and for once see what I see, not just think my thoughts, actually see the fate I wish upon them, and feel what it is to be watched all the time. That is one way. We have to find others. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just a minute. Thank you very much, Naveen Kishore ji and Mohini Gupta, for this session. Coming up next, Poetry Hour, Kavita Nirantar, in just a few minutes.
हर दिन आगे बढ़ने के लिए पढ़िए वो जो दुनिया के हर पहलू को दिखाए, वो जो आपकी सोच का दायरा बढ़ाए, जो आपको हर दिन नया नॉलेज दे, वो जो आपको रखे वक्त से